Tomasz has been with us for 10 years, 10 wonderful years. And our Philharmonic has grown in stature, in complexity, in the caliber of performances that we have. Tomasz has been absolutely incredible for our Philharmonic. I think he has grown and we have grown. Tomasz has got some incredible traits. First off, he's a very giving person. He loves music. He loves teaching. He loves having people respond and appreciate to music. And he goes out of his way to know every note that is going to be played and to have the musicians perform and showcase themselves on how great they are. And Tomasz, we want to thank you. As president of the board, on behalf of the community, on behalf of the entire Philharmonic board and our entire audience, we want to thank you so much for being there with us and helping to showcase everything that we do.
Well, hi, I'm Patricia Lack-Dawson, and I'm the mayor of the great city of Riverside. You know, Riverside is known as the city of arts and innovation, and we have our own Philharmonic. And that Philharmonic is the crown jewel of our city. And the maestro behind the remarkable shine of that jewel is Tomasz Golka. Tomasz has been a fearless leader. He's creative, he's dedicated, and he's made the Philharmonic what it is today. I think the hallmark of a city with a thriving art scene is the fact that it has its own Philharmonic. And Tomasz has worked for the past 10 years to make sure that our Philharmonic stays and thrives. Happy anniversary, Tomasz, one of Riverside's brightest shining stars.
Dear friends, I'm very excited to share with you Riverside Philharmonic's very first online concert. I am particularly honored because this concert celebrates my 10-year anniversary as music director of Riverside Philharmonic. From my very first moment conducting the Philharmonic in October of 2009, I immediately knew that this was a very special group of musicians. Cities the size of Riverside around the country don't necessarily attract the level of orchestral talent that is in the Philharmonic. However, because of the close proximity to Los Angeles and the Hollywood studio scene, thousands of the world's greatest musicians have historically gravitated to Southern California, and you could hear them at your local cinema around the world. It is because of this that the orchestra has become known as Hollywood's best, Riverside's own. Many of the very same musicians you see on the stage with me playing Brahms or Tchaikovsky are the very same ones you hear playing during an Avengers action scene. I am very proud to be beginning my 11th season alongside these amazing musicians and to be able to play for the city of Riverside.
In 2008, our Riverside County Philharmonic Board of Directors began the process of selecting a new music director. And we had some very big shoes to fill, so we knew we had to get it right. We researched what the process should look like, and we brought together a group of about 12 individuals. A third were board members, a third were professional musicians, and a third were longtime patrons of the Philharmonic. Our search included written questionnaires that went out to 8 different candidates. We asked each of them to work with our musicians to fill out the program for a concert, to come and conduct a concert here with our musicians, to run through rehearsals, and then to go through an interview process. So one of those candidates was Tomasz Golka. He came to us through his brother, Adam Golka, a renowned pianist that had performed here in Riverside. He was coming out to perform a second concert, and he told us all about Tomasz. And as we researched Tomasz, we found that he was somebody who was known for his creativity. He'd won many awards. He worked well within the orchestra unions, also with the communities. He had a youthful energy about him. So as we went through the process, we really did find many wonderful candidates. But as you know, Tomasz was our choice. And that was heavily because the musicians felt that he brought out the best in them. It really makes classical music more inviting to the general public when you have a music director like Tomasz. We very much appreciate him, and I know that we made the right choice, and I'm here today to wish him a happy anniversary.
Tomasz is very special. He's multicultural, and he's just brought a new energy and excitement to our Philharmonic. When we lost Patrick unexpectedly, we had guest artists, guest conductors come. We had evaluation sheets to evaluate all of the guest conductors, and then interviews afterward. And then we went through the selection process with the musicians and with the board. We chose Tomasz, and I think it was a perfect choice for us. I couldn't be happier. He's just brought so much excitement to the Philharmonic. It's a joy to attend. He's really endeared himself to our audience and warmed up to the audience, and we get some little snippets of humor from him occasionally, and that's wonderful, and I think the audience really enjoys it. Plus, he also talks a little bit about whatever piece he's going to play. So, and he's a composer also, and we've heard a lot of his compositions, and he's just brought wonderful, exciting music to us, and I'm so happy that he's our director. Tomasz, thank you for all you bring to the Philharmonic. You are a marvelous, wonderful person, and happy 10th anniversary. We love you.
In order to protect all of us during this pandemic, it was important to have at least 8 feet between each musician. Something that none of us realized was how difficult it is to make music, interact, and react on the fly when we are all so far apart, sometimes not even able to hear each other. I can think of no better partners to share the stage with than those who are there with me, but even to our seasoned world-class musicians, these were very challenging circumstances. The first piece you will hear is the Third Brandenburg Concerto of Johann Sebastian Bach, which I led not from the conductor's podium, but from the first violin stand, as was often done in the Baroque era. This piece is one of 6 so-called Brandenburg concertos, so named because they are dedicated to Christian Ludwig, Margrave of Brandenburg-Schwedt. These are unique compositions because Bach uses very adventurous and totally different combinations of instruments in each of the 6. The third concerto is scored for strings and harpsichord, though in unusual numbers: 3 violins, 3 violas, 3 cellos, and a bass. Since lower instruments carry better than high ones, one would expect balance problems, where the violins are not heard. Yet Bach somehow manages to write parts in such a way that the many layers of the texture are always heard. In fact, with this combination, it is easier for middle and lower voices to come out more, which is where often the most interesting things happen. In this piece, Bach also leaves us with a puzzle. Most Baroque concerti are either in 3 movements, fast, slow, fast, or occasionally 4 movements, slow, fast, slow, fast. However, this concerto only has 2 movements, fast, fast, with nothing but 2 chords as the middle or slow movement. Many people speculate that these chords, played slowly, would allow the leader of the group, either the first violinist or the harpsichordist, depending on the group, to improvise elaborate ornaments while the rest of the group holds the 2 chords, thereby creating a second movement. However, I am of the belief that one of 2 things happened. Number 1, Bach improvised an entire slow movement on the harpsichord and had the rest of the musicians just join him for the final 2 chords. Or, number 2, Bach borrowed a slow movement from another piece of his, which is exactly what we do here. This was a very common practice employed by composers of the day that allowed them to make the greatest use of the least amount of music. Remember that Bach, after arriving in Leipzig in 1723, was responsible for a different cantata every week of the year for Mass. That is a lot of music to compose, write out individual parts for, and ultimately rehearse and perform. So, like a good Californian, he recycled. In fact, the very first movement of this very concerto, although with the addition of oboes and horns, is also the opening symphonia of his cantata number 174, Ich liebe den Höchsten von ganzem Gemüte. So, in the spirit of Bach, I borrowed the largo from his sonata for violin, cello, and harpsichord in G major BWV 1021, and used it as the second movement. The reason I use this particular largo is that it ends with the same chords that Bach wrote out in the Brandenburg Concerto. So, without further ado, here is Bach's Brandenburg Concerto No. 3.
When we first auditioned Tomasz, he was very impressive. A young conductor who is so well organized, pick great programming. I remember it was very difficult to learn that piece. But it was challenging and fun to play. And on top of that, he knows his music very, very well. There are conductors who will come in, just do the job, without really looking through the music, but he knows the music inside out. So we were really, really impressed with his technique, conducting technique, his musicality, his expression, and his innovation in the music programming. He had brought to Riverside Philharmonic a much more serious program, but at the same time fun. It's not always just lots of pop music. He bring in something that you normally don't get to hear, not only just in Riverside, but also in other cities, such as Los Angeles. And sometimes he bring in musicians or soloists that you never heard before, but they are great. They are just outstanding. So he's almost like someone who can really scope out the talent in the music and also find out great music in the programming. Tomasz is fun, and sometimes he will make jokes in the orchestra, but he's also very serious. So sometimes he talks so seriously that we had to try to figure out, was he talking about joke? But we all have fun with him. Thank you, Tomasz. Thank you for the past 10 years, and hope for 10 years more.
In 1939, Igor Stravinsky experienced what he would later call the most tragic year of his life. Within a few months of one another, his daughter, wife, and mother all died. And the outbreak of World War II forced him into exile for a second time. But this time, instead of fleeing Russia, he had to leave his adopted home of Paris for the United States, settling in 1941 in West Hollywood. There, he accepted a commission from conductor Werner Jansen and began composing what would become his first work composed entirely in the United States, the Danse Concertante. Despite the title, Stravinsky intended Danse Concertante for the concert stage, not for the ballet stage, although within a few years, choreographers, including George Balanchine, would choreograph it. The work, with its neoclassical style and small concerto grosso ensemble, where solo instruments come out of a chamber orchestra, is clearly inspired by Bach's Brandenburg concertos. If you listen closely, you can also hear little snippets of Schubert's Marche Militaire. The music is in 5 symmetrical movements. The first and last, both marches, contain the same music. The second and fourth both have ballet titles, Pas d'Action, an ensemble dance, and Pas de deux, a dance for 2, often for the romantic leads, which in Stravinsky's case are depicted by the oboe and the clarinet. The middle movement is a theme with 4 very imaginative variations, each conjuring up a world completely different from the previous. I totally understand why people would want to choreograph this. Like with Tchaikovsky's music, it is hard not to imagine ballet scenes when listening to it. One other reason that is personal to me why I chose to program this piece is that it is the very first work I ever conducted with a professional orchestra, the Florida West Coast Symphony in 2002. I hope you enjoy it.
Riverside City College and the Riverside County Philharmonic have had a collaboration for the last 2 years. The contribution to the symphony orchestra, as in any symphony orchestra with a large city, is, me being an arts person, it's invaluable to have a symphony orchestra of this quality here in the city of Riverside with such a fine conductor. I think any good conductor just shows their passion for the music and for what they're doing and how to express whether it be a specific piece or a composer's intent to a piece, and Tomasz does that very well. RCC is happy and proud to host the Riverside County Philharmonic at the RCC Coyle School for the Arts Concert Hall. It's a beautiful concert hall. The orchestra always sounds amazing in it. Tomasz, again, thank you. We hope to have another 10, 20, or 30 more years. We appreciate you very much.
In 2016, I received a commission to compose a children's ballet with animals as subjects. So I started writing various movements that would have animals as their main characters. I wrote Masya the Mischievous Cat and Wilbur the Waltzing Pig. This piece tells the story of a pig named Wilbur, yes, you guessed it, I love Charlotte's Web, who wants to learn to dance the waltz. The part of Wilbur is depicted by the contrabassoon, which is played by Alan Savadoff, who is seated front and center. And you can hear that although Wilbur is very enthusiastic about learning the most elegant of all the dances, the waltz, he isn't quite graceful enough to do it. So he tries many different waltzes and finally settles on the very first one, which he has now made his own in a loud, triumphant, albeit somewhat piggish rendition. I hope you enjoy it.